Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be comparing Webull versus Coinbase, the interfaces, and what I like and don't like from each platform. Starting off with Webull, you can see I have open pulled up as a reference here. They just reported their third quarter earnings, which I actually listened to their earnings call. So it's nice to actually relate to this company as we can talk about it in real time. Unfortunately, we can see that they have not actually updated their quarter results here on the actual website, but that is another topic we'll get into in just a moment. Overall here, I want to talk about the interface. The interface is very slick and nice. We can see that we can just basically drag and drop. What's pretty sweet about this is we can actually see that right there, see that it dropped the information right there, which is the recording of this video. On the 6th, we can see exactly what the EPS estimate was, but unfortunately, we don't see it right here. That's the one thing that this kind of lags behind. So I would say that's the only downside to using this platform, is that this actually is pretty much behind. And we can also go here to quarterly and we can do annually, but I like to look at the quarterly because that's really where you get an insight of a company. Of course, annually is great, but the point is that it's lacking that information, but it's nice to see that that icon was actually updated so we can reference that in other parts of this video. But overall, we can see that this is a pretty slick interface. What I do like about it is that we can do year to date, we can do 1 year, we can do 5 year. Of course, we can also see what the tops of this particular stock was. We can see back here in 2000, and let me pull that up right there, 2021, it was actually in February 12th. We hit a high right there of $39.24. We can also see the low here at a very low 51 cents. And we can see at the recording of this current video, it closed at a market close of $5.59. At a market close, it was $5.59. And we can see what that closing price was at $6.56. But overall, I do like the Webull platform. We can go through it quickly, like Robinhood right here. We can see where it's actually at, right? Where the close was, where it was after, and where the overnight market currently is. I like to always look at the year to date because I think that's best. We can see where the high was on Robinhood. And of course, they also reported earnings. We can actually see them right there. That was yesterday. I did listen to that earnings call, which was nice to hear from Vlad. We can see the high was at 153.86. I believe in that company, so I'm excited to see them continue to go up. But of course, we're just talking about the platform here. And you know, we can go and see other examples, but the point is that this is a clear interface for charts and chart lovers. So we can go here to the very top and we can actually type in Bitcoin, and we can see that I've already looked it up right there. We can actually see what the price of Bitcoin has been doing. And of course, I always like to go in these intervals, right? We can see the 1 minute, we can see the 5 minute, we can see the 30 minute. But here's the nice part, right? We can go look at the max time frame here. We can see the all-time high of Bitcoin was at 126,244.81. And we can see in real time where this actual price of Bitcoin is going. So remember, there are only 20 tradable cryptos on Webull. Unfortunately, that's all they have, and I wish it would change, but that's the way it is. You actually have to open a separate account. That's where you actually see this here, but at least you can view the price and you can see where that is going. I always like to just look at this year-to-date performance. We can see how volatile Bitcoin has been. We can see it was down over here, 74,000. We're at 101 right now. And if we want to look at one more, we can actually come up here and we can come to Ethereum, and we already have it right there. We can see the lows, right, which is what I really like. We can see the highs. We were nearing 5,000 for Ethereum, and we can see just how volatile it was. I always like to look at the max time frame so we can see where it was, how dirt cheap it was back here in 2017 at basically $5.86. Of course, that varied and it went pretty sky high right there. We have some peaks right there. You know, that's just the way crypto is. That is pretty much a quick overview of what Webull is. Now, I know there are more cryptos on here. I'm not going to get into that, but we're going to jump onto Coinbase, and I just want to show you how easy and seamless it is right there. Now that we are on Coinbase, I want to walk you through this process. Pretty straightforward. So obviously we can see the home screen. We can see the amount that I actually have in Coinbase. It's not very much. It's just some fun money to actually demonstrate this platform for you all. So let's get started. First up, we're going to actually look right here. We can see the watch list. I actually have a few cryptos that I'm watching. We have Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and then of course we have XLM, and then we have Demo. We can see the top volume. We can see the trending. We can see the top gainers, top losers, and we can see the highest buy ratio, and then most buyers and most search, which is convenient if you're actually wanting to buy and trade here on Coinbase. What's really nice here is that we can actually see a market overview. We can see the market caps, we can see the trade volume, and then we can see the BTC dominance. Overall, the platform is pretty slick. I like it. We can actually see it. We can buy, sell, and we can convert all right here. We can use, USDC. And of course, we can convert it directly into Bitcoin. We can send, right? We can receive, we can deposit, we can withdraw all within this platform, which is what I really really like versus using Webull. It just seems so complicated over there. You have to have a separate account. I just wish that Webull had the integration similar to Coinbase. That's what I really like. So we can see all these different tabs, right? We can see my assets, we can see transactions, we can see explore, and of course the list goes on, and the newly announced Coinbase One credit card. I did do a video on that. Go check it out. I'm comparing it against the Gemini credit card. Now let's jump onto this explore page and we're going to check out all of the cryptos that are on this platform. So we can see exactly the way they categorize this. We can see Bitcoin, Ethereum, we have Tether, XRP, BNB, which is a new one we can see right here. We have Solana. Of course, we have that USDC, and we can actually see what it's paying on that APY because the interest rates have been cut by the US government, the Fed, and we can go to the very bottom. So many different options. We even have, TRX, which I haven't even heard some of these. We have Dogecoin, then we have a Cardano right here, and the list goes on and on and on. So what I really like about this is that we can just jump into any one of these. I want to jump into Bitcoin specifically because that is what I'm interested in most. Do that right now. So we can see here on Bitcoin, it's so nice to see that everything is gathered here. We can see I actually bought some Bitcoin back in 2024. We can see the amount right there. We can see exactly what it's been doing within the past 1 hour. And what I love about this is that it actually shows timestamps, right? And it's like 5-minute intervals, 6-minute intervals. It's nice to see that. And it's nice to see that this is so precise at the exact time of when the peak was, right? Peak was at 9:09 of the recording of this video. And we can see it's actually changed since then. We can see the 1-day performance, how the fluctuations go. We can see the 1-week performance, right? We were at 110,000. Now we're at 102,000 recording this video. We can see it just continues to change ever so much. Now this is the 1 month. We can go to the 1 year and we can see all time. And I always like to see this because we can see exactly how dirt cheap Bitcoin was. So cheap, about $581 back in 2014, which is just insane to think about because that was not that long ago. And we can see just how much it has appreciated since then, and we can see the highs and the lows, of course, of Bitcoin, and it's continued to go up ever since. And that's what I like to see about this platform. It's really easy to see it. And we can see the other options of cryptocurrencies. Let's jump back onto this Explore tab right now. Now that we are back on the Explore tab, we can see Ethereum right here. Let's jump into that. We can see Ethereum is right here. And of course, we have all the information. We can see where the highs and lows were with Ethereum, and that's really nice to see. And of course, if we want to know more about it, we can go into read more, and this actually breaks down exactly how does Ethereum work. What are the potential use cases for Ethereum? What is the history of Ethereum? So they really tried to educate you, the platform Coinbase, on what these actually are used for, and I love that so much. Let's actually do that with a couple other cryptos that I am unsure with. Do that right now. I had mentioned that I do not know what this Tron is. Let's take a look at it right now. So we can see actually when we go into this, it says Tron is not tradable on Coinbase. We can understand what's going on with this, and we can understand where this is coming from. We can see the CEO and all that. We can see the market cap and so much information. That's what I love about it. And I wish that Webull had a clean interface like this because we don't have something like that on Webull. Unfortunately, it's just not that good. Now let's jump onto a couple of the other things just to cover it up, and then we'll wrap up the video. Next topic that I want to quickly touch upon is the Coinbase One credit card. We can see we can actually get a 7-day free trial. We can see what is paid per month, or we can pay it per year, and we can save $9.89. And of course, we can compare the plans here. We can actually see what is best for us. I don't want to actually sign up for this, but if you want to sign up, go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and take a look at this. Maybe it's for you, it's not for me. And of course, they have some disclosures and what is actually going on with this particular card. But here are all the list of benefits. I'm not going to read them out loud, but check them out when you have some time. Next, I want to touch upon my assets here really quick. I like how everything is listed. Of course, I don't have much on this. It was just fun money and rewards, but it's nice to see how they organize everything very accordingly. And I like to also see that everything is categorized right. Unrealized return, balance, name, and everything is there, and you can jump into anything at a moment's notice. That is pretty much everything for Coinbase's demonstration, what I wanted to show you all. Let me know if you want to dive into a specific topic. As always, thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.